In the meantime, Nigerian lawyer and human rights activist Festus Ogun says Tinubu's appointment of Ola Olukoyede as the chairman of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, is illegal and unconstitutional. According to Ogun, Olukoyede is not qualified for the role as his appointment clearly contravenes Section 2, subsection 1A of the EFCC Establishment Act 2004. He explained that Section 2, subsection 1A of the Act provides that a person appointed as chairman of EFCC shall be a serving or retired member of any government, security, or law enforcement agency not below the rank of ACP or equivalent and must possess not less than 15 years cognate experience. The lawyer added that Olukoyede does not possess 15 years cognate experience in any security or law enforcement agency. He asked that the appointment should be withdrawn immediately. And now joining me to further discuss this is Gloria Ballason. She is a legal analyst. Gloria, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
What are the specific qualifications required by law for someone to be appointed as the chairman of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission?
Well, we can only rely on the EFCC Act, Section 2, subsection 3, actually, of the EFCC Act says that anyone who should occupy that office should be of the rank of AIG, the equivalent of AIG, and that's from any of the security agencies in Nigeria. And that also there should be a cognate experience of at least 15 years. So we see that with the present appointment, or rather recommendation of Olanipekun Oloyede, that section has not been complied with because he is a legal practitioner who is not a service person, and neither does he have qualification of the ranking that is required or its equivalent.
Now that we've been able to establish that there are legal provisions, now are there procedures by which can be used to challenge the appointment that has been made by the president? Of course, even as we've been able to see that it contravenes the law.
I think also it's important to also look at what has happened before the appointment of Olanipekun Oloyede, or rather the recommendation of his appointment. Because while there are concerns about his legitimacy, there are equally concerns about what has happened before now. The Economic Financial Crimes Commission came to be in 2003. And since then, we've had 6 of the chairmen, both substantive and acting, from the north. It started with Malam Nuhu Ribadu, then we went to Mrs. Farida Waziri, then we went to Ibrahim Lamurde, then it was Ibrahim Magu, and then there was Abdul Rashid Bawa, and then Abdul Karim Chukol, and now we have Olanipekun Oloyede. So if you look at it from the terms of federal character, and that is not supposed to have been how it would have gone in the first instance. And now we are here. So the question really is, for our country, which continues to honor laws in breach rather than compliance, we must get to a point where we ask ourselves, do we want these laws to guide us, or do we want to use it as an excuse for infraction? And because time and again, that's what we see. We continue to have this kind of conversations on different aspects of our country where we see that the laws are not respected, and yet we have these laws that have been made either by the National Assembly or the State Assembly, or indeed the Constitution. So we cannot continue to use the laws as an excuse and always find a way to exploit it. It requires willpower. And what that means is that leaders at every sphere of governance, whether it's the executive or the legislature or the judiciary, have to be able to look at the laws and say, do these laws matter? And I think that laws matter in every country where civility is important. And so that is important also, that we recognize where the place of the law is in Nigeria, because this constant move of moving against the law rather than in favor of the law doesn't do the country any good. So this also creates a legacy problem, in my opinion, where a country constantly creates this kind of problem. At the end of the day, what you would find is that the successive appointments, people will continually refer to what has happened prior to that, and then they will not look at the laws. So I think that this provides an opportunity for President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to look at his recommendation again. This is not the only recommendation that has had concerns. We saw that even with the ministerial appointments, we see also concerns about some of the appointments that are being made. It's okay to want to have certain people in power, but the laws must govern a country. Otherwise, what we'll end up with is mass chaos.
But Gloria, of course, we understand that the law, the Constitution, as it is, speaks to our federal character. But then when you consider what has happened within Nigeria's political system before the election, during the election, and after the election, the talks have always been about competence, pedigree, the ability to deliver based on your antecedent, and of course, what you're able to bring to the table. Now, of course, we probably might not be able to judge over the matter that is probably from a particular ethnic group, or maybe the appointment doesn't really go according to what the Constitution says. But don't you think when it comes to deliverables at the end of the day, one should consider what this person can do? And of course, probably that's what the president also considered to have appointed him.
So, of course, competence should be at the center of why appointments should be made. But then again, the law is there to guide to competence. The law is not at parallels with the issue of competence. And the EFCC Act didn't just happen. It's not an act that is happenstance. It is an act that went through the process of lawmaking of the National Assembly. Let's not even forget why the EFCC exists. It is to curb financial and economic crimes. And part of their core values is integrity. So you see, it becomes an aberration where we have a situation where they cannot even respect their own laws, and they provide for themselves chinks where people and the public would continue to look at it and say, well, physician, heal yourself. You have not even been able to put your house together. So whether it's the EFCC or any security agency at all, or lawmaking establishment, it is important that everything is well put together, that this kind of concerns and controversies around whether appointments or even the respect of procedures should not be something that should go on. Now, you spoke about competency, and I just gave you the statistics of how 6 of the chairmen prior to Olani Pekun's recommendation were all from the North. The question then would be, is it the case that there were only competent people in the North? And my straight answer off the top of my head would be no. Thankfully, there are competent people everywhere. So it's not as though competency and respect for due process and the acts and laws are mutually exclusive. All of this can be attained in one and the same process, because you see, everyone always knows that there will be a succession plan at some point. And so it never comes as a surprise. It's important that all of the succession plans are put on ground so that when there is a need for an appointment, people are not running helter-skelter or opening avenues for politicking, rather than the process to be transparent, fair, and compliant to the rule of law.
How do we then begin to strengthen our legal systems and, of course, see that people adhere to the rules when it comes to appointments? And, of course, when it comes to that also, are you advocating that the president should step down this appointment and probably look across board and see some other person that might be qualified for the job while having to follow the Constitution?
It speaks directly to the issue of leadership. And that's a question that we have not been able to adequately answer in this country. And so my consistent question will be, when will leaders lead? You lead by ensuring that the laws are obeyed. You lead by ensuring that there is no situation where the citizens continue to complain about the processes that are being followed for appointments or whether due process is followed. And so if we have a precedent, as we do have in President Bola Ahmed Tinubu at the moment, it is his duty to lead by ensuring compliance with the law. And I know he cannot be in short supply as to the competent people who will not have any questions or about their credibility or indeed their capacity and their compliance with what the laws provide for the appointment into those offices. So it's important that across board, all of these appointments should follow due process. You see, when we have a country that complies with due process, it gives it form, it gives it credence, it gives it a future, and indeed it solidifies the present. But when we are constantly having conversations such as this, as has been the case, particularly under this government, and indeed even previous governments, then it raises the question over and over again, do we really need the laws? Because if we feel like as a country we don't need the laws, then perhaps we may have to have that conversation to say we set it aside. But indeed, it does appear to me that we need the laws, and that's why the National Assembly exists. Therefore, the law must be the paramount compass that gives us a sense of direction for our country. And then the law must be higher than every other person, whether they're in the executive or the legislature or the judiciary. So it's important that we elevate the laws in this country to that point where we have respect for the laws, we have respect for the rule of law, and we have enough sense of patriotism to ensure that in terms of what should be done in this country, we may not necessarily like it, it may not necessarily be what is politically correct, but when it is legally right, when the process is followed, at the end of the day, everybody wins. So when we respect the law, it will work for all of us, rather than a situation where we'll have hues and cries from different, parts of the country. Again, what that does is that it makes the person who is appointed vulnerable. Because when you feel like you didn't really have the credentials for the office, you continue to second guess yourself. However, if you come with your full credentials, you sit in the majesty of your office, you obey the law, and you do your work without feeling like you have to, compensate other quarters or people who feel like you were not good enough. And that is why the laws are important. And that is why also the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, who leads over 215 million people, should lead in the respect of the law.
Ballason, thank you so much for talking to us.
Thank you.